All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another review. The game we're reviewing today is God of War: Sons of Sparta. So this game came completely out of nowhere, and I don't think there's been any trailers or announcements or anything for this game. It just kind of popped up. So yeah, definitely haven't seen something like this coming. But it was a welcome surprise. I'm a massive fan of God of War, so I was obviously going to give this game a try. And now I am ready to give you guys my thoughts on the game. So, as always, we'll be splitting this review into a spoiler-free part and a spoiler-full part, and then those two parts will be further divided into four subparts concerning gameplay, visuals, story, and soundtrack. So the spoiler-free part starts now. You're already seeing gameplay of Rotato in the background. I wanted to have some God of War gameplay for the background footage here, but I don't have the game installed, and I didn't wanna free up space just to record a 10-minute clip. So yeah, we're just gonna have to make do with Brotato. I'm actually probably going to make Brotato my go-to game for all my reviews going forward. Yeah, I feel like I've been using footage from it a lot. But anyway, no spoilers here. Let's get to talking about the actual game. Before we even get into talking about the gameplay, here's something you should know. This game is not a two-player game at its core. When I saw the trailer, I was sure that this was a two-player cooperative game. I was like the trailer just gave me that kind of impression that this is definitely a two-player game. It just had that feel. It's not. There is a two-player mode, which I actually haven't tried yet, but you unlock it at the very end of the game. After you've beaten the game, then you unlock the two-player mode. It's not something that the game revolves around. I can't even comment on whether the two-player mode is good or not because I haven't tried it. But just to be clear, this is not a two-player game like and I can imagine many other people thought. So when I started the game, me and my brother were really excited to play it together, and then it turns out that it's not actually a two-player game. So yeah, that was a little bit of a letdown at the start, but after I finally swallowed the tough pill, then I I accepted that this was a single player experience. I actually really liked the game. So let's just that little disclaimer out of the way because I feel like that was the most important thing to mention because of how convinced I was that it was a two-player game. Yeah, it's not. Let's get into the actual gameplay. So I do think that the gameplay is really good. I had a lot of fun with this game. It's a really cool mix of elements from God of War games and 2D platformers, because this game is a 2D platformer, but it's also a God of War game. It does have elements from both of these worlds, so to say. So you can create all sorts of builds, and there's a lot of different upgrades and special attacks and weapons and stuff that you can use, uh, which is, stuff that you'll recognize from God of War games. But there's also platforming, there's a lot of cool movement, and just elements from two-player platformer, two-player, two two-dimensional. I keep saying two-player, two-dimensional platformer game. So it's a really fun mix that, in my opinion, works pretty well. So let's maybe go over the combat first because I think it's like the game's the biggest sort of part of the game is the combat, and I do like it a lot. I think the combat in this game works really, really well. Like I said, there's a lot of builds you can do. There's all sorts of abilities and weapons that you can get. There's actually a lot of stuff to play with, a lot more than I had expected going into this game. There's obviously not as much stuff to, there's not as much build making opportunities as in something like God of War Ragnarok or God of War 2018, but it's close. Like I'm actually surprised. Like, that's just overall, like, even beyond like builds and upgrades. I think this game is much bigger than I expected it to be. I've When I first saw this game, I thought it would be like 10 hours at most. It's actually almost three times that, which is nice. Which is nice. I was actually pleasantly surprised by the number of content in this game. Moving on to the movement is the movement's fine, but it's definitely not the highlight of the game. Like there is some movement here and some platforming, but it's not a big part of the game at all. If the game does have some cool mobility options, but if you're looking to find some Path of Pain level platforming in this game, you're not gonna find it. This game puts much more of an emphasis on combat and puzzles rather than movement. And the puzzles are good. If in case you guys are wondering, the puzzles were good. None of them were too advanced, but I thought they were fun to solve. So yeah, that's that. And then just a few more things. I have my notes open here. There's a few things in this game that I really appreciate, some specific features that I have to point out, even in the spoiler-free part. Mm, I love how generous this game is with its checkpoints. Technically, because technically you do have these save points, like a Souls game, these campfires that you rest at, and technically that's your spawn point. But if you're in like a big fight, like if you're doing a boss fight or like a challenge fight or something like that, and you die, then you respawn right at the boss fight. You get to restart it straight from the boss. You don't have to run back, and I appreciate that a lot because my biggest problem with games that have these set checkpoints is having to run back all the way to the boss after every attempt. That's something that's always really annoyed me. So I'm really happy that they decided to go for convenience in this regard. And another very convenient option that you have in this game is, from like Hollow Knight or other God of War games, actually, you will run into certain areas that you can't open until you've acquired the required item, right? And it is easy to forget all of the places that you visited but couldn't open. So this game has a really cool solution to that. Well, solution. You can take screenshots in game and place them on your map as markers, which I thought was extremely convenient. I know that technically you can just take a screenshot on your console and then look at it that way, but then you have to save the screenshots in your media gallery, and then you have to like delete them afterwards, and you don't know, you can't forget. It's easy to forget where the place is on the map exactly, unless you take a second screenshot of the map and then the room. It's just a bit of a headache, and I love how they made it so much more convenient in this game because you can just take a screenshot in game and it saves as a marker on your map, and that's super convenient. I love that a lot. I definitely love how much they went for convenience over frustration in this game. I don't think I was frustrated with like basically basically wasn't frustrated with this game like ever. Uh, that's pretty much it for the gameplay, at least the positives. Now let's move on to what the biggest problem of this game is. This game is pretty abundant in, let's call them, technical problems. Like, there are some things in this game that they should have just maybe polished out a little better. Maybe there will be some patches that will fix this in the future. I hope so, because this game does have quite a lot of these issues. So, for one, performance issues. I know, your jaw is probably on the floor, but this game very frequently stutters. Like, you just be going around and sometimes, more often than you'd like to, the game just stutter a little bit. Like, it was never unplayable, obviously, but it was a little annoying, especially for a game like this, a 2D retro platformer game on the fucking PS5 should not be having these sort of frame stutters. So I really hope that like a performance patch gets released at some point for this game, because that's kind of cringe. And other than that, there have been some bugs. Never game breaking, but always just a little bit annoying. So sometimes, like at the start of the game, I had this really nasty bug where tutorials would only pop up after I've already managed to figure out what the tutorial would have told me on my own. Like, you'd have new enemy types that have some sort of special attack, and I wasn't really sure how to deal with that attack, but I use my, but thanks to my hardened gamer sense, I was able to figure it out eventually. And then after I defeat that enemy, a tutorial pops up telling me exactly what what I had just already managed to figure out on my own. So the tutorials were just popping up at the wrong times, which I don't think was intentional. I don't think that's when they were supposed to pop up. That was pretty annoying at the start of the game, but then, once you get into it, once you get how everything works, then you don't need the tutorials anymore, and it's not a problem. Another bug that happened at the start of the game, and then it didn't anymore, but at the start of the game, mm, the game just wouldn't show me what items I was picking up. Like, I'd pick something up, and I wouldn't get a pop-up for what item that was. So I couldn't know if I just picked up some garbage or like the rarest item in the game. That was a little annoying. And yeah, that's pretty much that. Like I said, some of these weird like technical issues that kind of should have been patched out. Like, it feels sometimes that the game is a little unpolished because of this. And I really hope that they release some patches that fix this, because it just makes the game makes it look like the developers were kind of lazy when you got issues like this. And that is by far the biggest problem of the game. But one more thing I need to add, because I forgot. One thing that also annoys me, which about the gameplay. So when you're fighting bosses, sometimes there's certain ways you have to beat them, right? Obviously, like there's a certain like, without getting into spoilers, there's a certain like weak point on the enemy that you have to hit, or you have to use a specific weapon to beat the boss. And when like that weak point is revealed, demos will most often shout, "Hey, try hitting him with that weapon," right? As to sort of give you the idea of what you're supposed to do. And that's all fine. That's all great. If only he wouldn't repeat that every single time that you have to hit the boss's weak spot. That's something that I absolutely needs to be patched out. Like, I do get that your companion can like remind you to uh, attack the boss with like a specific weapon or like hit their weak point. If they do it one time, in this game, for some reason, Demos will not shut up about hitting the enemy's weak point every single time that you're supposed to do it, and that is a little bit annoying. I just had to put that out there because it just popped into my head. Yeah, don't really like that, Demos. You could shut up. Sometimes I did get it the first time. Okay, let's move on to the visuals. I like the style of the game a lot. I think the retro pixel graphic style looks really nice. There's all sorts of cool places you can visit. There's a lot of really diverse areas, and lots of enemy types too. And all the enemies look really cool. Same with the boss fights. I think the boss fights, all the bosses look really really cool. And yeah, not a whole lot else to say there. I think the game does have a very cool visual style, and I liked it a lot. It was very nice to look at. Now let's move on to the story. So, the game follows young Kratos and his brother Deimos, who are on a journey to find their lost friend who had gone missing, and now they have to find him. That's basically the gist of it. Nothing too complex, but I did really like the story a lot. I think the characters were really cool. I really liked both Kratos and Deimos. I thought they had a great dynamic together. The dialogue and the voice acting for all the characters was really, really cool. I liked it a lot. So yeah, I'll get into some more details on that in the spoilerful part, obviously. But there's one thing that I absolutely hated about the story, which I have to mention here. I don't think it's enough of a spoiler to be exclusive to the spoilerful part, because the whole story of this game takes place. The whole story of the game with like young Kratos and everything. It's all actually a story that's being told by adult Kratos to his daughter. And that means this game has narration. I have a big thing against narration in video games. It's something that's always turned me off. I think it rarely ever works. Like, I'm not talking about games where the narration is like an integral part of the experience, like the Stanley Parable or something like that. But if you just have a normal game that would have done without the narration perfectly fine, then you should just remove the narration. I don't think the narration brings anything ever, and definitely not in this game. You just sometimes hear adult Kratos talk over what you're doing, and sometimes Calliope will talk over it too. It doesn't happen a lot, fortunately. It doesn't happen a lot, only like in important story moments you'll get some narration from Kratos and Calliope. So at least it's used sparingly, but every time it happened, I just rolled my eyes. I hate narration. But yeah, that's the only real problem that I have with the story. Other than that, I liked it a lot. So, yeah, now moving on to the soundtrack. It's really good. It's really good. I think the main motif, the musical motif for the game is really good and used really well throughout the game during like important story moments and stuff. I think Bear McCreary did a really good job. And yeah, the style of the soundtrack itself too is really nice. It's like a cool mix between this, epic God of War style music that you're used to, and this retro, uh, kind of, retro style music. So it's a cool mix, and I did like the soundtrack a lot. think it was great. So, yeah, that's it for the spoiler-free part. Moving on to spoilers. So, brace yourselves. Here come the spoilers. All right. Welcome to the spoiler-full part. Let's get into the details of everything that I wanted to say. So, yeah, you're already seeing gameplay of Sons of Sparta in the background. And now let's get into it. So, mm, like I said, there's multiple weapons you can get, and I think they are probably the coolest part of the combat are the different mana weapons that you can get. You have these weapons you can switch between that do different things. You have a sling that throws fireballs, not really fireballs, like solar balls, I guess. You have a branch that throws fireballs, like actual fireballs, and you have you have a sword that can also shoot laser beams. You have a bouncy stickle that ricochets between enemies. It's a lot of stuff to play with, and I liked all the different weapons a lot. I thought the effects for them were really, really good too. Probably should have mentioned that in the visual part, but whatever. Mm, I do think the combat for the game is really good. There's a really good parry as well. And, if a game has a good parry system, then I'm sold. That's just that's just the way it is. So yeah, apart from those weapons, you can get all sorts of runic attacks, like you had from other God of War games. And I didn't use all of them, but I did use a few, and they were all cool. You can also change the way your combo works, which I thought was a really cool addition. You can change like the way your default melee combo works and what it does, what kind of finisher it has. So that was a really cool thing you could customize. And yeah, you could also get all sorts of debuff inflicting stuff, like you get electric damage, you could do poison damage, you could do like time slows. Yeah, one really cool thing is that if you do you can upgrade your dodge to slow down time if you do it at the perfect moment, which I think was another really cool thing. In other God of War games, you had to waste a charm slot for that. Here you have it all as like a default skill tree upgrade, which I think was really cool. Mm. And overall, yeah, I just really enjoyed the combat in this game. Pretty much said everything I wanted to in the spoiler free part already. I guess I can comment on specific bosses now, because I thought all the story bosses were great. I liked them all a lot. Like the fight with the big snake at the docks was really cool. The fight with the blood demon guy was awesome. That was also one of my favorites. I loved the final boss, the freaking electric three-headed bear monster. He was super cool and all just really fun to fight overall. I think definitely most of the bosses were very fair and fun to fight. There were only a few that I really, really, really hated, and those were the Gorgons and the Sirens. The Sirens Sirens at least were really, really easy, so even though they were annoying, you could still take them out quickly, but there was this one Gorgon boss which, oof, I hated that one. That one was really annoying, and they were all the bosses that I've mentioned, all the annoying bosses that I've mentioned were annoying because of the same thing, and that's they kept spawning millions of little minions that would just keep on attacking you at the worst times, and it was so incredibly frustrating. Yeah, but that's a minority. Most of the bosses were definitely really, really good, and I liked fighting them a lot. So that's that for the gameplay part. Yeah, let's move on. So, to move on to the visuals, I pretty much already said what I wanted to. The game does look really, really good. I like the style of it a lot. It's a very, very, very cool looking game. And you do visit a lot of really unique locations, which I also appreciated a lot. I love how varied all the places you visited were. Like you had the vineyard with all of the like bloody grapes staining the walls. That was a very cool area. The foundry was also super cool. This big like industrial lava filled area that was also one of my favorites. And then the very final area, the what was it called? Viro's Gorge, I think. That one was also really cool. Had this really like gloomy feel to it, and with all the lightning in the background, really had a nice atmosphere. And also the barren steppe with the cultists, I like that a lot. The whole like cult thing was also one of my favorites. One of my favorite places in the game. Yeah. And like I've already mentioned, I do love all of the effects on the weapons. I think they all have really nice vibrant colors and they all just look super cool when you use them. Yep. That's that for the visuals. Moving on to story. So like I said, I do really like the story of the game. I think the dialogue with all the characters is really, really good. Like, I mean, obviously, if there's one thing that Santa Monica is good at, it's writing dialogue. And while the story in this game is not the next God of War Ragnarok when you're going to be absolutely blown away, it is still a nice story. And I did really feel all the I think do think all of the character moments hit the way they should. I really loved the dynamic between Deimos and Kratos. I thought they had a great thing going on. And yeah, overall that was just it. It really reminded me of God of War 2018 in the way the whole story played out, where you had this singular goal from the start of the game that just never changes. In God of War 2018 you have to get to the top of the mountain and then all sorts of stuff happens around that. And here you have the same thing with finding the missing friend. You go looking for him. The search takes you all over the world until eventually you do find them. Yeah, that. And then there's a really nice farewell ceremony for him. It's cool. It's cool. It was a very enjoyable story, and along the way you got all sorts of character moments. You got Kratos growing tired of the search, but then later, you know, coming to the realization that you can't ever leave a Spartan, and that Kratos realizes that he needs to do this because he's been an asshole to that friend in the past. It's a really cool story. Just overall, I enjoyed it a lot. There was nothing about the story that I disliked other than the narration. Again, hate the narration. Whenever Calliope's voice just sounded boomed through the speakers of my TV, it was like a fucking jump scare. I hated it every time. So no, don't like the narration, okay? I don't think it's necessary. You could have just had this story be set in the past in Kratos' youth without the need for that narration, and we would have been fucking fine. Yeah, God. Okay, so I guess that about covers it. Let's move on to the soundtrack, which I don't have anything else to say in regards to the spoiler-full part, so we can just call it uh, a day. So, thanks guys for watching this review. This was a really fun game, which I liked a lot. And yeah, I'll see you soon for another review because I recently bought a game that I wanted to play for a long time but kept forgetting, and I finally got around to buying it, and I'll be playing through it starting soon. Yeah. So, see you whenever I see you.